welcome to this deep dive. You've sent in some really fascinating examples of this kind of linguistic shape-shifting. And today we're going to get right into how English verbs pull this surprising move, becoming nouns.
Yeah, and it's more than just like a grammar rule, isn't it? It can actually shift the whole meaning sometimes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So our mission really is to unpack these transformations, look at the nuances, and, well, help everyone navigate these shifts with confidence.
Absolutely. It does make you wonder, though, like what's the real feel difference between saying a call and a phone call?
Right?
Or how did we get from the action to cheat to a cheat, the actual person?
Yeah.
And the classic one, why does saying a drink pretty much always mean something alcoholic?
Huh. Yeah, that's a good one. These are exactly the kind of linguistic puzzles we're diving into.
Spot on.
And hopefully by the time we wrap up, you'll have a really solid handle on the three main ways verbs do this noun thing. You'll get why a run isn't always the same as just running, and the difference between, say, a rebel and the act to rebel should be, fingers crossed, crystal clear.
Okay, let's do it. So the three sneaky ways.
Yeah, let's unpack those. Where should we start?
Well, the first one is maybe the most straightforward. I'd call it the simple swap.
The simple swap. Okay.
Yeah, the verb just sort of becomes a noun, but the basic meaning stays pretty much the same.
Right, like your examples. To call, we say, I'll call you. That's the action, the verb. But then I got a call. Suddenly call is the thing itself.
Exactly. Same idea, different rule in the sentence.
And walk is the same, right? Let's walk versus let's take a walk.
Perfect example. And the key thing for listeners to notice here is just that change in function, how the word works differently.
From doing to naming.
Precisely. Sometimes, maybe, the noun form puts a little more emphasis on the instance of the action, not just the action generally.
Ah, okay. A subtle shift.
A subtle one, yeah. We might see more of that.
Okay, so that's the simple swap. What's next? Things get trickier now.
A little bit, yeah. This is the second category, the shapeshifter.
Ooh, okay. Shapeshifter.
This is where the verb becomes a noun, but it picks up a new, often pretty distinct meaning along the way.
Right. This is where you need to pay attention, I guess.
Definitely. Because these shifts can, really change your understanding. Take to cheat, the action.
Doing something unfair.
But then it becomes a cheat. Now we're talking about the person who does the cheating.
And that usually sounds quite negative, doesn't it? It's not just
implies-
descriptive.
It often carries that negative vibe, that judgment.
And the other classic you mentioned, to drink,
Yeah, just consuming liquid. But I grabbed a drink.
almost always means alcohol. Coffee maybe, at a push, but usually, yeah.
Usually alcohol. It's become shorthand, probably from social situations where getting drinks just meant that.
Makes sense. A
Yeah.
kind of social evolution of the word.
Sort of, yeah. The original action is still kind of there in the background, but the noun form, it's taken on this specific flavor.
Okay, so you really need to be aware of that potential shift. Misunderstandings are easy otherwise.
For sure.
All right, simple swap, shapeshifter. What's the third sneaky way?
The third one is the sneaky gerund. That's the ing form, acting as a noun.
The ing form. Right, like running is fun.
Exactly. See, there, running isn't describing someone doing it right now. It's the activity itself. It's the subject of the sentence.
Or treating the action like a thing.
You got it. It's like saying the book is interesting. Running is the book in that sentence structure. It's the concept.
And you mentioned the difference between, say, I love swimming and I love to swim. Is that significant?
Well, it can be subtle. Both show you like it, obviously, but I love swimming often feels more general about the activity itself being great.
Okay.
Whereas I love to swim might lean a bit more towards like your personal preference or maybe an intention to do it. The gerund focuses on the activity as a concept.
I see. So the infinitive to swim maybe feels slightly more like expressing a specific desire or ability.
Perhaps, yeah. The gerund lets us talk about these actions in a more abstract, noun-like way, as subjects, objects, all that grammar stuff.
Got it. Okay, so those are our three main paths. The simple swap, the meaning-bending shapeshifter, and the ing gerund, acting like a noun.
That's the core of it.
So now let's maybe dig into some of those bigger meaning shifts, the ones that could really cash you out.
Good idea. Because knowing the mechanisms is one thing, but seeing the tricky examples really helps.
We already touched on a drink, usually meaning alcohol. That's a big one.
Huge one. If someone says, let's go for drinks, 99% of the time, they don't mean lemonade.
Yeah, definitely not. It's just baked into the phrase now.
And what about rebel?
Ah, yeah. A rebel versus to rebel.
Big difference, right. She's a rebel that's describing her character, her whole vibe.
Yeah, someone who inherently pushes back.
But she likes to rebel. That's about the action, the behavior of pushing back.
They're linked, obviously, but the focus shifts. Noun for the person, verb for the act.
Exactly. And cheat works the same way.
Right. Who's a cheat? That's a label, isn't it? Carries judgment.
Definitely. Whereas he cheats sometimes. That's just describing an action he takes. Less about his fundamental character, maybe.
Interesting distinction.
Yeah.
And then there's a run. That one's versatile.
Very. I went for a run. That's exercise. Jogging. Almost always.
Uh-huh.
Then we had a run of bad luck.
Totally different. Means a sequence, a period of time.
Exactly. Or a run in her stocking. A tear.
Wow. Okay. So context is absolutely everything
It
there.
really is. Like that pro tip you mentioned from the sources, context is king.
Yeah. A call could be a phone call.
Or a decision, that's your call.
Or even a doctor's visit. The doctor's on a call.
You just have to look at the whole picture.
Okay. So we've seen how gerunds work, but maybe why do we use them so much? Why the ing preference sometimes?
Well, like we touched on, it often gives that feeling of talking about the activity generally. Swimming is fun. It's broad.
So-
Saying to swim is fun. It's not wrong, but it sounds a bit more formal, maybe slightly abstract, even philosophical.
Yeah, I can hear that. Swimming is fun, just sounds more natural for a casual statement.
Right. And then there are those preposition traps you flagged. Those
Yeah.
are important.
Ah, yes. Things like used to.
Exactly. It's I'm used to driving, not I'm used to drive, because to, there is a preposition, not part of an infinitive.
And prepositions need that ing form, the gerund.
Usually, yes.
Yeah.
Same with good at. It's she's good at painting, never good at to paint.
Little grammar rules, but they make a big difference to sounding natural.
They really do.
So how do we put all this together? How can listeners use these verb nouns correctly and, not sound like a textbook?
Well, one big thing is listening for and using the common phrases, the collotations.
Right, the words that just naturally go together.
Exactly. Like your sources said. It's take a walk, not really do a walk.
Or give a talk, not make a talk.
Precisely. You just have to kind of absorb these natural pairings.
That makes sense. Learn the partnerships.
Yeah.
And you also warned against overnouncing.
Huh. Yeah, that's my term for it. Sometimes you can just turn everything into a noun when the verb works perfectly well, maybe even better.
Like saying, let's have a discuss.
Exactly. Why not just say, let's discuss? It's cleaner, more direct.
Or I need to think instead of I need to think.
Right. Sometimes the noun form sounds a bit clunky or overly casual if you're not careful.
So the advice is, when in doubt.
When in doubt, stick with the verb. It's often the safer, more natural sounding option unless you specifically want that noun feel.
Good tip. And then there are those specific verb pairings, make a decision, not do.
Yep. And the classic UK split, have a bath versus take a bath.
Always fun, those little differences.
Oh.
Language keeping us on our toes.
Isn't it just?
Yeah, that listener story you shared from @NowConfused, that was perfect.
Wasn't it? Really shows the potential mix-up.
Saying, I need a win.
And the friend immediately thinks of sports or competition. What sport?
Yeah. But they just meant, I need something to go right. Like, I need to succeed at something.
It's a brilliant example of how that noun form, a win, carries specific baggage, specific common contexts.
Totally relatable. And what about the listener hack? The highlighting trick?
From @GrammarArtist. Yeah, highlighting the ing nouns in blue.
Just to visually separate them.
Exactly, to help consciously see when that ing form is acting as a thing, an activity noun, rather than describing an ongoing action, could be useful for some learners.
I like that. Simple visual cue. Okay, and then the listener challenge to wrap things up, the verb to noun detective work.
Yeah, just to get people thinking actively. First, spot the shift with a buy.
Meaning a purchase. Has the meaning shifted from to buy?
I'd say subtly, yes. To buy is the action. A buy often emphasizes the thing purchased or the good deal that was a good buy. Focus shifts slightly.
Okay, makes sense. Then test the gerund. Feeling the difference between I like to read and I like reading.
Which we discussed reading often feels more general about the overall activity's enjoyment.
Got it. And finally, invent a noun, turning to scroll into something.
Yeah, the example was a scroll for endless phone browsing. Which is quite clever, actually.
It is.
Yeah.
And the source mentioned a follow on social media, meaning a follower.
Right. Not the act of following, but the person who follows. Another great example of that noun shift. Language evolves.
It really does.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so wrapping this up, it's clear these verb nouns are, well, everywhere in English.
Absolutely unavoidable.
And while they add richness, you really need to be mindful of how the meaning can subtly twist and turn.
Using them carefully, knowing the common patterns and potential shifts, that's key to sounding natural and being understood correctly.
So here's something maybe to think about. Next time you hear someone say, let's have a talk,
Mm-hmm.
just pause and consider. Does a talk feel maybe a tiny bit more serious, more scheduled than just, let's talk?
That's a great point. The noun form can sometimes add a bit of weight, can't it?
I think so. What other everyday phrases might have these hidden nuances, just because a verb decided to wear a noun hat for a bit?
Ooh, good question to ponder. There are probably loads we don't even consciously notice.
Definitely something to listen out for. And looking ahead to our next deep dive, we're tackling phrasal verbs.
Ah, the wild world of phrasal verbs. Get ready. Trying to figure out why takeoff can mean so many different things.
Exactly. From removing clothes to airplanes leaving to careers suddenly succeeding. It's going to be fun.
Indeed. Always more linguistic layers to peel back.